All right, we're going to entertain a silly topic here for a second because it's at least based on basketball. It's not some random thing. It's a random basketball conversation, the kind of thing you would discuss around a dinner table or a bar stool or something to that effect. And that topic is Caitlin Clark versus Bronny James one-on-one. Ridiculous, as I said. And you may ask, why would we bring this up? Why would we discuss this? Well, Jeff Teague, former NBA player, on the Club 520 podcast he is a part of, had some very strong words about this hypothetical matchup. In fact, he said Caitlin Clark would not score against Bronny James, that he would destroy her. He said the same thing about Asia Wilson in a hypothetical one-on-one against Bronny James. And let me get two disclaimers out of the way before I continue. Number one, I agree with the basic premise based on biology that a high-level NBA or close to NBA level player is going to beat a WNBA or close to WNBA level player. As a general rule of thumb, right? Like I agree with that premise. There are physical differences between men and women. That is just science. So I agree with that general premise. Secondly, I think people have gone OD on Bronny James. Even in this thought experiment here, he is kind of brought up as the bum, right? Can they, they're not saying LeBron James or Steph Curry or Kevin Durant. It's Bronny James, who's in the G League. And people thought, doesn't belong in the league and is only there because of his dad. And I think people took those takes too far. Did Bronny benefit because of who his dad is? Absolutely. There's no question. Maybe it helped him contractually. But people talk about him like he's an MVP or supposed to be an MVP and not a second-round pick that generally those fizzle out in the first place anyway. And he has shown no grace for having cardiac arrest and nearly dying on the court. That's a legitimate excuse for a setback, especially when you consider where he was once mocked before in drafts. And I think Bronny has some translatable skills to the NBA because he is quick twitch, he's athletic, kind of explosive, can see the floor well, passes the ball well. At his size, he's going to have to be a knockdown shooter. He's going to have a pet move that he can get to off of his quickness, and he's going to have to be an absolute pest on defense in order to find a long-term role in the NBA. But I think people went OD on Bronny. And I think Jeff Teague went OD on this take, how extreme he was in the results of the take. I would play it for you, but there's some language in there that may get me flagged by YouTube. So let me just read you some of the quotes, and I'll put them on the screen so you can see what was said. I'll put the link to the full show in the description. Caitlin Clark would not score a point on Bronny James, bro, Teague said when asked who would win a one-on-one game between these two 2024 rookies. She might not even get a shot off, bro. Teague later added that Bronny would beat Asia Wilson 20-0 if they were to play. Later on, Teague added of Bronny and Clark, he would beat her by 60 points. He would legit beat her 20-0. Bronny's younger brother, Bryce, would beat her 20-0. Yikes. He's 10 times more athletic than her. Teague continued, when comparing Bronny and Clark, he can do everything better than her. She's a girl, bro. Shout out to Krista, who always is having some good stuff online. So there you have it, the comments from Jeff Teague there. And I respect his assessment of his peers, his assessment of his basketball journey. But let's dive into it for a second. Let's treat it seriously for a second. So first of all, I don't think one-on-one is a good indicator of how great a player someone is. There are players who may be better one-on-one players than others who are not as good within the team concept. And I think this would really limit Caitlin Clark because you're perhaps taking away her number one attribute, which is her ability to see the floor and dime you up. She can't find her teammates. She can't break you down that way. Makes it tougher for her, for sure. Now, when you're talking about how these players would match up one-on-one, Asia Wilson did joke with Josh Hart that she would beat him on that roommate show that he does with Jalen Brunson. And she doesn't really have the height advantage there. She, I believe, has about a 2-inch height advantage over Bronny. Bronny has the strength at the base. So I think the problem for Asia there would be, can she get to her areas? Like off the dribble, he's going to hound her. And I don't know if she has that boogie down game. to get to her spot? And then can she turn her back to him, protect the ball, and back him down to get to a spot she's comfortable from? Because if she can get to that free throw line extended area, she can really shoot the ball from there and could maybe get some points. If she can get him on the block and turn and shoot over him, she does have a little bit of a height advantage, though he has that explosive leaping ability. So that I think is the issue for Asia. Defensively, can she even hang with him on the perimeter is going to be a problem. Maybe she sags back and lets him shoot. He hasn't proven to be a good enough shooter yet. Meanwhile, with Caitlin, I think defense is a huge issue for her, obviously, in any of these prospective matchups, even though she's stronger than people give her credit for. But if you were to put Caitlin, I think, in an NBA dynamic on the floor, I don't think she could hang at all on defense, but I think she could maybe find her way to score, with her ability to pass and shoot the ball. I'm not saying she's an NBA player, right? Like none of these, obviously, again, I agree with the basic premise. But the difference between her and Wilson here is she has better handles and she can shoot from further away more consistently. So will Bronny be able to face guard her all the way out by the logo the whole time without her being able to ever get by him, or without being able to ever get her shot off with the step back? And if she can get enough up, she shoots well enough from there to hit some and cobble together some points. So there you have it, the in-depth analysis. Now, I've seen girls, by the way, hang on the floor with boys. I've seen it with the kids I coach now at a younger level. I've seen it myself playing against high-level women basketball players when I was in college. Now, again, I'm not an NBA player. And, Brian Scalabrine once had the great line. I've referenced it before, but he said, and he's considered, a back end of the rotation guy, bench guy, whatever. I'm closer to LeBron James than you are to me, to random scrubs, right? And that's true about the majority of the NBA. We know Caitlin hung with boys when she was younger. Now, would people pay to see this? They also mentioned that there when they were talking, they sort of mocked WNBA ticket prices before somebody pushed back about Fever ticket prices. But regardless, would people pay? Absolutely. They pay a grip. I mean, a lot of people had Netflix. I'm sure some people signed up for it, but people would have paid a grip to see Jake Paul fight Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson was essentially a senior citizen who just had a blood transfusion or whatever it was. A fight that never should have been sanctioned. This is at least just a basketball game. So I don't know. You could charge crazy prices with the names involved and the curiosity factor involved. But the NBA All-Star Game has gotten it right because they do it based on skill. And that's where the WNBA and women's basketball thrives. There is tons of skill. So Sabrina and Clark at the All-Star Game against Steph and Clay or whatever it is, that's skill for skill. You remove that physicality, which again, I agree with the general biological premise. But just like people went OD on Bronny, perhaps he went a little OD, a little extreme on the results of these games with both Caitlin and Asia coming up total goose eggs. Can't give him a point.